Welcome everybody to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake and I'm glad you're able to join me. Now today we're going to be talking about how you can break out of the burnout that you might be feeling. Now when I talk about burnout and working past that, there's one really big solution that when I bring it up, it causes a lot of people to squirm, and I might for you as well. One of the biggest ways to break out of that burnout is this thing called rest. I know it's this crazy idea, but I'm not talking about the collapse on your couch because you just can't walk another step kind of rest. I'm talking about the kind of intentional renewal that our culture has somehow convinced us is selfish or lazy or proof that we're not committed enough to our goals. Now, this could show up many different ways, so I'm going to cover a few different types of people that I'm really speaking to, parents and entrepreneurs and that person who's working grinding away 9 to 5. Here's some examples that might hit home to you. So if you're a parent, maybe you feel that sort of guilt every time that you want to take time to yourself, just 10 minutes to yourself, believing hey, good parents, they sacrifice everything for their families. And you tell yourself that you'll rest when I'll rest when the kids are older, or when the kids go to bed, or when life slows down, when I finally caught up on everything. But I'm going to kind of give you a spoiler alert here. That day never comes. Or maybe you're an entrepreneur who's wearing your exhaustion like a badge of honor. There's that hustle culture, you've convinced yourself that sleeping 4 hours and working weekends is what separates you, from being successful, so you're not being mediocre. But you're afraid that if you slow down even slightly, that your competition's going to pass by, or you're going to miss some crazy opportunity. Or perhaps you're an employee who's staying late to prove your worth, answering emails at midnight to show you're dedicated, while your actual productivity plummets and your creativity is disappearing entirely. If any of this sounds familiar to you, then what we're covering today could completely transform how you think about success, impact, and what it really means to show up to the people and purposes that matter the most to you. So my name is Jake Talbert. As we cover everything, I want to make sure you're aware. My name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder and author of this book. It's called The Giver Method. It came out in November. Since it's been out, it's sold thousands of copies. It has tons of 5-star reviews. It's an Amazon bestseller. I highly recommend that you get yourself a copy, because everything we're going to talk about today, they're not just theoretical concepts. They're things that you can actually put into practice that we dive deeper in the book. There's worksheets, there's exercises, there's all sorts of things that it covers that helps you to uncover all these things, to take your gifts and superpowers, create more influence, more impact, more value for people, all while not overwhelming and overloading yourself, especially if you're in that overwhelm or burnout cycle that people fall into. So I'll put a link in the description where you can go get it on Amazon. I highly recommend you get yourself a copy. At the same time, down in the description, I'll also put places where you can find us on social, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those places, as well as or at the free resources that we have. Or at the same time, we'll talk a little bit here in a moment about if you have any sort of a community podcast stage that you want to bring this message to. Now, what I want to cover though today with taking stuff from the Giver Method as a part of this idea of burnout, I've lived with this exact struggle myself. I've been there. There was a period where I was convinced that rest was something that I would earn after I'd achieved enough, helped enough people, built enough success. What I discovered was that my constant exhaustion wasn't proof of commitment to anything. It was actually limiting my ability to make an impact that I actually claimed that I cared about, but I was actually hurting my ability to do that. So today I want to walk you through these 6 they're really essential strategies that help you break out of this burnout cycle and redefine rest as a leadership responsibility rather than a luxury. Once again, they're not theoretical concepts. These are really practical tools for busy parents, for overwhelmed entrepreneurs, for the dedicated employees that people have used to increase their impact while working less, which is a crazy concept to some of you. We're going to cover a lot of ground today in the Giver Method, and so once again, if you want to grab yourself a copy, feel free to. It'll be down in the link description. At the same time, if you do have a platform, a stage, podcast, community, group call, whatever it is, an event coming up that you're like, man, I feel like this could really impact the people that that I work with. Well, let's sync up so we can talk about how we could work together on that, how we can provide that value to your world. So I'll put a link in the description that goes to the speaking and podcast page where we can jump on a call, talk about what that may look like. But for now, let's just talk about how to stop running on empty and start creating the kind of sustainable energy that makes real impact possible. Because here's what I've learned, sustainable impact requires sustainable energy, and you are the steward of your energy. So we're going to dive through these. I recommend you grab a piece of paper, open up a notes app or something, jot down your thoughts as we go, because it's about what you put into practice, not about just watching the video. So let's dive in. First principle, first idea, strategy that I want to cover is the energy stewardship shift. So taking this idea of self-indulgence to a leadership infrastructure. So energy stewardship shifts like why viewing rest as fuel, not as that luxury. So when we flip the way most of us think about rest, most of us grow up believing that rest is a reward or something I'm forced to do, right? You know, it's something that maybe you've worked so hard that you just can't go any further, or you've worked hard enough that you get that thing, or it's a guilty pleasure that you take after everything else is done. But the real problem is that like everything else is never done. That's the way we see the rest. Like that's just how we see things. Like it just keeps being shoved to the bottom of our list right until like we reach the point of burnout and overwhelm. And if you're there, it's because you kept pushing it down. But there's some things we can do to resolve that. Now, the truth is, protecting your energy, like it isn't selfish, it's actual leadership. The energy that you have, it fuels everything you care about. When you're a parent, your energy shows up in the bedtime stories and the tough conversations. If you're an entrepreneur, it drives your creativity, your vision, you know, and the kind of decisions that move your business forward. And if you're an employee, your energy shows up in how you collaborate and solve problems and influence the people around you. So that shift it's about seeing rest as this responsible stewardship that I have, not something that competes with my work, you know, but something that actually powers me to do my best work. You know, you won't run your car until the engine seizes, right? You know, you wouldn't run your body or mind into the ground either. So if you're thinking like, you get to start thinking about it through that sort of a lens. So let's talk about how you can do that. What are some simple ways, resets, and things that you can do? And so I would say start super simple. Write out your energy impact statement. So you want to ground this in something. So it's going to be a few sentences that remind you why your energy matters, you know, why it's worth protecting. And so it might sound something like this. I wrote out a couple just so that we could, you know, talk through them. When I'm rested, I show up patient and present for my family. You know, when I'm energized, I make better decisions for my team. If I'm renewed, my creativity and problem solving actually move the needle. Write it out, you know, where you'll see it. Put it on a sticky note, put it on, you know, your phone lock screen, the bathroom mirror, because like when you start to feel that burnout or you feel like you need to take the rest, but maybe that guilt is creeping in, you know, there's that little voice that's like, you should be working harder, you know. Well, gosh, you just need that reminder to help protect your energy is a part of your job. It's a part of your responsibility of what you're doing. And then next, put it on your calendar, block time for renewal for whatever fuels you. Like, you know, it could be quiet reading, it could be creative play, it could be deep rest, like just whatever it is. Like this is your leadership energy time or your family investment hour or your creative recharge, whatever you want to call it. Put it on the calendar so it's in a way that it reminds you. Once again, this isn't indulgence. This is just how you serve better, longer. And this shift is so foundational because when you treat rest as that leadership, like a leadership tool, everything else clicks into place. It stops being something that you fight for or feel guilty about. It becomes something that you guard on purpose. You know, there's research out there, like it's clear that leaders who protect their energy show up more creative, more emotionally intelligent, and far more effective over the long haul than those who like grind until they collapse. This isn't about choosing between dedication and rest. It's about choosing between burnout and lasting impact. And so that principle tees up everything else we're going to talk about as we roll on. So in our second one, the second idea strategy is like you need to have the early warning recovery system. So this is going to be about learning your body's signals and responding with like renewal before it hits crisis mode, right? I want to catch it before the crash, you know, because if we're honest, most people, like they're not resting, they're collapsing. And there's a huge difference between the two. Collapse is when your body finally forces you to stop. It's a survival mode. It's zoning out in front of the TV for hours. It's scrolling on your phone when you're too fried to think straight, you know, or you know, snapping at your family because you've hit a wall. Like that's not rest. Like that's you trying to rescue yourself. So renewal, on the other hand, like it's intentional. It's choosing to rest before you get to your breaking point. And here's the key, your body's always sending you signals, little clues that you're running low and need to recharge. But most of us like have been trained to just ignore these signals until it's absolutely too late. But you know, the good news is once you start learning what those signs look like, you get ahead of them. And that starts to shift your energy and your creativity and your patience. It just shifts all of it as you start to notice it. So those signals are personal, but they tend to follow some sort of patterns that we're going to talk about. There's going to be physical ones, like might be tension headaches, might be heavy fatigue, even if you've had a full night's sleep, you know, you feel like you can't shake it, right? You know, it could be you get sick more often. Mentally, like it might be like brain fog or decision fatigue, forgetfulness, feeling overwhelmed by simple things. And then emotionally, it can show up as irritability or cynicism or numbed out feeling when you just feel like you stop caring about the stuff you usually love. Like, once again, they're not failures at all. This is your body. It's telling you something. You just have to learn to listen so that you can start to do something about it before it hits rock bottom on those. So here's what I want you to do. Here's the practice. For the next week, simply just keep a log. Nothing complicated. Just note like when you take breaks and how you feel before and after. For each break, ask yourself like, what was that, a collapse or was that a renewal? Once again, collapse looks like, I couldn't go anymore. I just, I zoned out and I felt worse after. I felt guilty for stopping what I was doing. It's like, for renewal, it's like, no, I chose to pause before I hit a wall. I did something that made me feel more human. I felt recharged after. I felt more energized. I felt more authentically me. So while you're tracking that, you also tune into your personal like early warning signs. What you're looking for is like, what starts to shift first when you're running low? Do you get snappy with your kids because it's late in the afternoon? Do you forget small things that were on your packed calendar? Are there certain tasks that are draining more than others? Whatever it is, write it down, because all you're doing is gathering this personal energy map that you have. And then once you start seeing the patterns, create like, there's 3 simple response levels. So think of it like a green, yellow, red sort of a thing. Like green is like early signs, like getting a little less patient. So, build in a quick renewal. What's that 5 to 10 minutes? I just need some fresh air. I need some movement. I need some breath work. I need to grab a cup of coffee, whatever it is. Yellow are like medium signs, like I'm avoiding work, that usually I enjoy, or I'm getting really snappy. Like, cool. Well, then prioritize renewal like sooner, today. Protect your lunch breaks, delegate a task, say no to some sort of a new request so that you can focus on the things that matter to you. And of course, red is going to be serious signs like brain fog or physical symptoms. And if that's the case, stop pushing. Reset like with a real rest. Like step away if you need to and communicate those around you like you're prioritizing your recovery. And then of course, the other thing that you can do is choose these 3 renewal activities that will truly restore you. Not numbing you, but truly fuel you. Maybe it's a quiet walk, maybe it's playing music, maybe it's a creative hobby or time in nature. And then set those renewal cues in your day to remind you before you hit the wall. Like, could be a phone alarm that pops up saying like, hey, what does your energy need to be right now? Or a post-it note on your desk. Like, just find the small actions, because those small actions have some of the biggest impact. Learning, if you spot these early signs, if you start spot them quick enough and respond before the collapse, like it's one of the biggest ways to create more sustainable energy. When you only rest after you crash, recovery takes longer. Your quality of life takes a hit. Your relationships suffer. Your fulfillment and joy struggle. That's when you start feeling more burnout, more overwhelm, more stress. But when you build a habit, of tuning in and acting early and start working with your energy instead of against it, like there is so many different research and studies out there that like will back this up, that the people who respond early to fatigue, they're going to bounce back faster, perform better, stay healthier long term. Beyond that data, you're going to feel it. You show up as a better parent, a better leader, a better human that you actually want to be, not one who's running on fumes. Which leads us to our third strategy, which is this there's I was referring to these transition rituals and how you need to design or architect them into your life. So think of it, you're building a bridge between intensity and calm. Simple routines to help you shift gears instead of dragging them with you throughout your day. Because one of the sneakiest ways that we burn out without even realizing it is skipping transitions. Think about it. How many times have you ended maybe a stressful Zoom call, and then 2 minutes later you are shifting gears to be fully present with your kids or your spouse, or you finish hours of focused work and you instantly expect your brain to jump into creative mode, or into rest. It's like, nah, that's not how it works. The thing is, your nervous system can't do that on demand without giving yourself some time to reset between different modes that you're in. You end up dragging that tension and stress from one part of your day to the next. And that builds up over and over, and it escalates even faster the longer you do, that compounding effect. Even if the individual tasks weren't all that draining, the lack of any sort of a transition in there creates that heavy undertow that leaves you feeling wiped out at the end of the day. So that's where this transition bridge idea comes in. It's this simple, tiny, repeatable action that helps you, your system shift gears, so that you can leave one part of you behind and show up more fully for what's next. And no, it doesn't have to be some complicated or long thing. Like even like 30 seconds can work. What matters is the consistency of it. You're teaching your brain like, hey, we're changing lanes now. And it makes all the difference in the world because it changes how you carry your energy throughout the day. So here's what I want you to do. Start by picking one spot in your day where transitions maybe feel rough. For parents, it could be coming home from work and trying to be present with your family. As an entrepreneur, it could be going from deep creative work to admin role. For if you're an employee, like it could be shutting the laptop and switching into personal life mode without like your mind still racing on all the work stress. Whatever it is, think of it like yours could be whatever it needs to be. And then build a simple ritual, that bridge, okay? Could be physical, it could be 3 deep breaths. It could be changing your clothes. It could be stepping outside for a few minutes. It could be a sensory thing, like playing a specific song that helps you reset. It could be a hot cup of tea. It could be something more mental where you're writing down one sentence about what you accomplished and your intention with what's next. Like the point is to just create some simple pause where you're telling your system, okay, we're moving into the next space. I do it like even before bed, where I could be talking to my wife, and then as I'm getting ready to go to bed, as I'm ready to go to sleep, I do an intentional exhale exercise that just helps me be like, okay, I'm letting go of whatever there is, and I'm ready to go to sleep. And I found that once I started doing that, I fall asleep so much faster, and I sleep better because of it. So there's all sorts of different ways that you could do transitions throughout your day. Practice like one transition a day thing. Like just pick something, the same time, the same action, and do it for at least a week. The more consistently you do it, the more your body's going to start responding. You're going to notice it gets easier to leave things behind that you were just doing and to show up fresh with what's ahead. And once you've got that down, you start layering it in more and more as you need it, like between work blocks, after hard conversations, before family time, before winding down before bed. Like you just find the ways to start peppering in. It's going to have such a massive impact for you. This is one of the, it really is a simple thing, but it's really powerful to help you prevent end of day burnout. To build momentum with these transition bridges, not dragging all this unseen tension, from one part of your life to the next. You show up more present, you feel lighter, you're not constantly trying to catch up emotionally or mentally. That adds up, to just way more energy that you're burning, and it just doesn't, it's not just at work, but at home and with the kids and relationships. It all starts to creep in. Bottom line is the quality of your transitions often shapes the quality of your whole day. So build strong bridges, and you're going to be amazed at how much better everything else is going to flow for you. Now, that tees up about halfway through. So we're going to be getting into these final 3 principles and strategies, but I'd love to know if there's anything that you've taken away so far. Feel free to leave a thought in the comments, what's been an aha or something that you could take away from this. I love to hear those. I love responding to them. So our fourth strategy, so there's a rhythm that you customize, you create a framework around it. So think of it this way, design your personal sustainable success pattern. What's the work rest flow that actually fits you? Because one of the fastest ways we exhaust ourselves is trying to force our lives into these rhythms that were never built for us in the first place. Maybe you're, maybe you read that about some high performer who wakes up super early, does 3 hours of deep work, runs 10 miles, writes a book chapter, has a protein smoothie all before breakfast, and you think I guess that's what success looks like. Trust me, it's not. I am an early riser. I love waking up early, but I know that it's not meant for everybody. Maybe you're trying to operate like a machine, the same pace, the same energy all day long, ignoring natural peaks and dips in your body, how your body actually runs, and when that rhythm doesn't work, you feel guilty or broken instead of realizing just your rhythm's off. It's just not who you are. And so that's why this is so important. This is why I'm all about this idea of a rhythm reset. And it matters a ton because it's paying attention to how you're actually wired right now in the current season of life. And you design sustainable flow of work and rest and renewal that serves you, not the Instagram version of productivity that you're seeing. Because the truth is your optimal rhythm shifts based on tons of things. Your natural energy cycles, your life stage, whether you're raising kids, whether you're running a team, juggling both, personal stress patterns, even the season of the year all plays into it. There's no one size fits all rhythm. But the good news is that because of that, it means you can actually stop fighting yourself and stop trying to be something you're not and just build a pattern that actually works for you. And so what I want you to do is I want you to start by becoming a student of your own energy. For, like I said, for the week, I think one of the best things you could do is track your energy and feel when you're the most alert and most creative When are you the most tired and the most drained? You know, you don't have to change anything yet. Just notice, like, what time of day do you do your best thinking? You know, when do you need to move your body to get recentered? What kind of activities give you a second wind? Which ones like just totally tank your energy? And then based on what you learn, design a weekly rhythm that works for you, not against you. So if mornings are your best prime time, like myself, then you protect those hours, you know, for the work that really matters. If you hit a wall mid-afternoon, don't schedule deep focus time or something super creative. Like, use the window for a lighter task or build in some sort of recovery. If the weekend helps you reset, block out space that isn't crammed full of to-dos, because that's just how weekends end up being. Now, here's the big one: is you create these rhythm boundaries. Like this limits, like, these are the limits that you're going to create and you commit to. Not because you're selfish, but because you know that protecting your flow actually allows you to show up better everywhere else. It might look like no meetings during those productive hours. It might mean no emails after dinner. It might mean, you know, 15 minutes of stillness before big tasks. Like, the point is that you get to decide the flow that supports your energy, not just your obligations. I have a no work talk after 6 p.m. because I know how much it messes with me, and I'll dream about work, and then I wake up less refreshed and less energized. Like, we just don't talk about work after 6 p.m. That's just part of what we do. So what I want you to think about is, like, trying to push through a rhythm that doesn't fit you is completely exhausting and completely unnecessary. I'm never going to say this is the exact way to do it because this is how it works for everybody, because I know for a fact that there is no one size fits all. When you start aligning your work and your rest with how your energy actually works, and stop relying on the willpower, you know, and start running on something much deeper, like, gosh, that flow that's there, you know, tasks are going to feel easier and you're going to get more done with less resistance. You're going to recover faster. You're going to show up for the stuff that matters the most: your family, your team, your clients, yourself, and in ways that's energized and not depleted. The goal isn't to create a perfect routine, because trust me, I don't think that exists. It's to just build flexible rhythm that lets you move through your day with more presence and more clarity and more life in, like, your work and your relationships, because that's what sustainable success actually would look like. Now, our fifth one is about, like, creative recovery protocol, like turn downtime into restoration time, like how to spend downtime that actually restores you. You know, the truth is, a lot of people miss, like, not all rest is actually restful. In fact, like, so much of what we call, like, taking a break leaves us even more depleted. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know, if you've been scrolling for hours on your phone, you binge watch a show late at night, you're zoning out in ways that seem like you're taking a break, but afterwards you still feel like, I don't know, foggy, sluggish, maybe even more disconnected than when you started. So that's why this idea is so important. Like, why creative recharge rituals, like, why they matter, is because, like, it's about learning the difference between this active restoration and passive consumption. Because most of what we're talking about is passive consumption. Active restoration helps you recharge your mind and body and creativity. It fills your tank so that you can show up with energy that actually matters. Passive consumption, on the other hand, might numb you out for a while, but it rarely restores anything and sometimes leaves you feeling even worse. And so it's not about never watching a show again, because, you know, or never scrolling, because I do think that those have their place. It's just about noticing the difference about what makes you feel more like you, or what just is filling time. Because when you're busy as a parent, juggling everything, the entrepreneur building something, the employee running on a packed schedule, like, your downtime is precious. You know, it's not just leftover time. It's the fuel. I want to show up as my best self. I need to take advantage of that. And when you start choosing rest that actually restores you, it changes how you show up everywhere else. So here's a couple of things you could do that are going to help with this. Like, first thing is, like, just take 5 minutes, and, you know, I want you to make two really brutally honest lists with yourself. The first list is, like, things I do when I'm tired that actually leave me feeling more drained. And the other one is things that I actually restore my energy, creativity, and joy. Like, this is going to look a lot different for every person. That's why it's like, you just have to be honest with yourself and not judge yourself. But maybe watching one episode of a show helps you unwind, but watching 5 leaves you feeling gross. Maybe scrolling social media for a few minutes feels okay, but after 30 minutes, your brain is fried, you know, and you're in that consumption mode. On the flip side, maybe walking in nature and listening to music moves you, but, you know, if having an unhurried conversation or you know, sketching, you know, tinkering with a hobby, or just sitting in the sun for 10 minutes, like, that fills your cup. You know, a lot of times I talk to people about, like, watching shows, and I tell people that I struggle to watch any really intense or dramatic shows at night because I feel like they drain my energy, like being so bought in. So I enjoy just watching comedies because they feel like I can watch an episode, it fills me up, and I'm ready to go. Even if it's an old show like MASH or Seinfeld, like there's all sorts of ways that you could approach that. So what you want to do here, like once you have your lists, you know, it's time to be intentional. Start by scheduling like these like creative recharge blocks into your week. You know, once again, I'm not trying to add more to a to-do list. Like I'm about protecting space for the kind of rest that actually helps you recharge, because a lot of times we're doing these consumption modes, and it's a matter of trying to flip some of those. During those times, like choosing like your restores me list, you know, as best as you can, and avoiding the stuff that drains you list. You know, now here's the key: is you pay attention to how you feel afterwards. The goal isn't to be perfect by any means. It's just to get better at noticing what helps you come back clearer and more energized and more like yourself. Over time, you'll start noticing that different choices automatically start coming into play. You'll know which kinds of downtime actually work for you, and you'll be quicker to choose them on the days that you need them the most. You know, how you spend your downtime, like it shapes how you're showing up in the rest of your life. That's just true. So start showing up for your family, your team, you know, more physically present, mentally and emotionally, like not checked out anymore. Like start making better decisions and feeling more creative, you know, more patient and more like you. It all starts with this. And that leads us to the sixth and final principle or strategy, which is like sustainable presence practice. So modeling energy leadership, you know, how to lead by example without burning out is really what this is. And it's something that a lot of us forget when we're super busy trying to juggle everything. Other people are watching us. Whether we realize it or not, you're teaching them what life looks like. If you're a parent, your kids are picking up signals about what adulthood means. You know, is it constant stress and exhaustion, or is it a life that includes real boundaries, sustainable energy, and permission to care for yourself? If you're an entrepreneur or a leader, like is teams watching you? You know, be a part of community, helping shape success. You know, is this what commitment looks like? So that's what this is all about, is modeling what it looks like to lead with sustainable energy, not burnout heroics. Because if we're honest, anyone can grind themselves down for a season. But what people need to see, what your family, your team, your clients, your kids, whatever, like what they really need is an example of how to show up over the long haul without running yourself into the ground. That's the big thing here. Like it doesn't mean you're pretending that you've got it all figured out, you know, or that there isn't hard work to do. You know, that there's not a struggle or fatigue that's going to come from this. Like, it just means being honest about it. You know, you're protecting your energy and showing up like that rest isn't a weakness, it's wisdom that you're using. So what I want you to do is I want you to first like watch your language. Pay attention to how you talk about your energy, your rest with other people. Are you accidentally glorifying exhaustion, saying things like, "Oh, I barely slept, but I keep pushing through," or like, you know, feeling guilty to take time to yourselves? Like, start flipping the script. Say things like, "Hey, I'm taking time to recharge, you know, so I can show up really well for my family," or, "Hey, I'm resting this weekend so I can be fully present next week with you guys." And then after you've checked your language a bit, like next, your boundaries, like, are your boundaries visible? Don't just talk about it, show it. If you leave work on time, say so. Like if you're not answering emails after a certain hour, let your team know why. You know, hey, because I'm more creative and better decision makings when I'm rested. You know, if you're taking lunch break instead of powering through, like model that as a priority, not a guilty pleasure. And then finally, like encourage others. Like notice when someone on your team, your family is protecting their energy as well, and praise them for doing that. When you start modeling this kind of sustainable presence, it does so much more than just improve your own life. It gives everyone around you this new standard. You know, families, teams, workplaces that value and normalize rest actually perform better long term. They have less burnout, they're gonna have stronger relationships, they're just better, you know, with creativity and decision making. Beyond like just that general idea, it feels better, you know, for you and the people who are watching. So stop playing the martyr in this. You know, stop needing to prove that your, you know, dedication through this exhaustion. Instead, become someone who brings energy and presence and resilience through the week, week after week, month after month, year after year. That's the kind of leadership that really will last. Now, what I want you to leave with today is that, you know, exhaustion that you're carrying, burnout, overwhelm, frustration, stress, it is not proof of how committed you are. It's not a badge of honor. You know, it's your mind and body waving a flag telling you like, hey, this isn't working anymore. And if you ever feel guilty, like when you have time that you're trying to take a break or anything, if you get caught up in the old story that like real leaders push through no matter what, like if you're running on fumes, that someday like you hope things are going to slow down, like you're not alone. Trust me, there's tons of us out there. I've been there myself. So many parents, entrepreneurs, high achievers that I've worked with have been there too. And I'll tell you what I've learned. That story that you're hearing, it costs you way more than you think, because the truth is the people who make the biggest difference, the ones who create work like that they're proud of and relationships that feel good to live in, like they're not grinding themselves into the ground. They're the ones who protect energy like it matters, like it's truly a currency of life, because it matters so much. You know, the things we talked about, like went through today, like these are like, they're not about doing more. It's not about just doing less. Like it's about doing what matters most without losing yourself along the way. They're about breaking this burnout cycle so that you can start, you know, stop just surviving your life, you know, or your home life or your work life or anything, and start showing up with the kind of presence that fuels lasting impact. So you don't have to fix everything overnight. Just start with one of the things we talked about today. One of these points that you're going to do to start moving the needle forward to really get yourself back into the rhythm that actually works for you. And here's what happens when you do that. You stop pouring into it, like trying to pour an empty cup. You stop having to power through with every little bit of it, like the brittle energy you have. You start making better decisions. You start getting more creative. You start to show up differently for your family or your team, your clients, or your community. You become someone who leads with resilience, not just effort. That's the kind of leadership this world needs more and more of. Now, if you're listening to all this, you're like, man, this is amazing, I want to dive deeper into it. And that's where I tell you to go get yourself a copy of The Giver Method on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description where you can go get it. The Giver Method by Jake Talbert. Go get it for yourself. Best $10 you can invest in yourself. It is full of practical tools, how to use your gifts to be more fully present, to build sustainable rhythms, and create the kind of life and work that truly reflect who you are. And of course, like I said, if you lead a team, you have a community, a podcast, a stage, an event coming up, any sort of platform where this message could serve those people, then once again, use the link in the description and let's get connected so that we can figure out what that could look like and how it could support your world. What I want you all to leave with is your energy matters, your presence matters, and the world needs you at your best, not just getting by. So you don't have to prove your worth through exhaustion anymore. You get to lead with strength that actually lasts. So do that. Let's make the impact we were all born to make. I'll just say thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you in our next video. Have a great rest of your day.